I'm Noah Nerd, and in this tutorial we're going to be using PlayCanvas, a WebGL engine, to build a simple 3D gallery. This is something I've done myself, twice in fact, for an art group that I'm involved in. And the tutorial is going to be split into three main parts, which are creating the scene. So I'll walk you through how to do that in PlayCanvas engine, adding the player controller, and then finally adding information on each art piece based on colliding with the art pieces. So it's going to be a very basic overview. We should hopefully give you an idea of how to use PlayCanvas, and then also how to add some basic scripting for some basic functionality we might want in a 3D virtual gallery exhibition. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Okay, so this is my PlayCanvas account. PlayCanvas is it's free to use, but for larger projects you're probably going to want more space. They have actually made that a lot better now. So for free, I'm on a paid account. I get to pay £50 a month for it, but so I get 10 gigabytes of space, which is pretty good. As you can see, I've already got a few projects here. To give you an idea of the kind of thing we're going to create, this is not an exactly the same as this, but basically sort of similar thing. This is a project I designed called Lockdown, which is it's actually it's like a virtual show basically that I did with a group of artists called The Tunnel. So this is sort of the thing we'll create. It's a 3D environment. You can wander around. We're not going to create exactly the same. We're going to create a sort of, like I said, a cut down version of this. But if you can walk up to artworks, and get a bit of information on who created it, what the title is, and that's the different for each one. So Net Junkie, Donald Trump artwork. We've got collisions set up, so you can't walk through the table and such. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is create a new project. So we go to Projects, New. That's pretty self-explanatory. We want a blank project, and we're going to call this Gallery Tutorial. Okay, it's a tutorial on building a 3D gallery. I'm going to keep it private for now, but I might open that up later. That creates our project. So that's just what that is for now. Let's go to the editor. So PlayCanvas has got this powerful sort of cloud-based editor, which is really cool. It's very convenient as well, so you can edit it from anywhere. You don't need to, any computer you're on, you can edit it. So what have we got here? We've got scenes, which is we created. There's just the default one created, I think, at the minute. Builds, which is where we publish. Once we've published and are happy with everything, we can publish it. Publish, which means we can publish it to PlayCanvas. We can also download it as a HTML and JavaScript. And we've got version control, which is quite useful too. So we might explore that a little bit, which is essentially just like a sort of version control system basically. So let's go into our first scene, and this is just going to be the only scene we work in because we're just going to make it one gallery scene basically. So let's go over some basic controls, how to move around. So if I right click, I can sort of scroll left and right. I can orbit. If I left click my mouse and drag it around, I can orbit around. And then yeah, right click is like a fixed. So that's useful to know. You can also WSAD around the scene, so I can initial scene, and then you also can combine these two controls into one. So if we go so that's fairly simple. On the left here, we've got our entity hierarchy, I suppose. So you've got the root, which is the root of everything. The camera, which is just a camera which has been plunked in here in its default scene. light, which is the light source, a box, it's a 3D cube, we'll probably delete that, and then a plane down here. So it's just a plane's another way of saying a flat surface basically. And then we've got various tools like scale, rotate, which you can click on the left hand side, and then I can manipulate any of these. Oh, I don't want to do that actually. I've got the cube selected, and you can just rotate that around. And you can also view the properties of the entity here. So you've got positioning, rotation. You can also modify it here as well. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care. Play canvas to control my pointer, and you can scale it up, down. But you can. So it's really personal choices whether you like to do both. You usually end up doing both, really, both or one. Usually end up using both though in combination. Sometimes you want to fine tune scaling. Usually I use it so I rotate generally with this. If I want to do it so and we've got the snap here, which basically snaps it to the grid you can see there, which can be useful if you want to get very exact with your positioning and stuff. Focus, which just focuses in on that object, and blah blah blah, various other things. And there's a code editor, which we'll explore later. And then that's just the shortcuts to the publish and download settings. But the main things you're using AI for actual object manipulation is the rotate, the move, the translate, the scale, and yeah. So we're going to want to build a basic sort of gallery space, so a rectangle basically. So let's start doing that. So if I might snap this actually, because it'll be a bit easier. So you can see how that's useful. It's not exactly snapped actually, so I might have to do some, turn that off, but it helps get me in the position that I want to be. I probably want to make this bigger, so I go select the scale, make it a bit more like a rect, sort of. Probably want a square room actually, just for. And if I want to make it square, again fine tuning the on here, go 15 by 15, so then it's nice and square. Go to snap. I think this might work. No, I need to fine tune it again, but still go here. Basically what I'm doing here, and you can also change your camera views as well. This is useful to know. So we've got our camera views here, so we can get a perspective view. So if you really want, and you can also with your middle mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out from this view, which is useful. This can be useful for lining things up like this. So for example, I can see exactly where it falls on the line. Now of course the wall isn't, I don't want the wall really to be that thick, so I'll just reduce the thickness down a bit by this on the scale, and then reduce it on the, what axis was it? The Z, I think. It's just like this. Alright, next I want to scale it so it's longer. It's 15 by 15, isn't it? So 15 on this axis. Enter. And have I rotated that or something? Because I don't know, I have to check it in the other view. I don't know exactly what's going on there. I think I rotated it, so I don't want any rotation going on there. I think I rotated it earlier. There we go. So now it's straight. And then I was demonstrating before I missed it. So that should now be lined up. And there we go. We've got the first. I need to put it up a bit, but yeah, I need to go up a little bit because I was looking at it from top. I didn't really notice that. And then leave that. And that looks pretty good. Now, obviously, for the other side, we just want to duplicate that. What might be useful to do, this is a good habit to get into, is create a new entity for like basically walls, and then I can nest everything underneath that. So if I go box and then I call it, so it just makes it easier for when you're, if this scene was to get much busier, I can then know where everything is because it's nested under this entity walls, which is very useful, especially if you've got a busy scene. It's a good practice to get into. So for the side on the other wall, I just want to duplicate that, shift it over here, zoom in a bit, check that it's lined up. It looks okay, I think. I think that's a little bit off, but it's not a huge deal for now. Okay, so we've got basically 2 of the walls done. So of course I call this wall 2 instead of wall 1 because I don't want 2 walls, they're called the same thing. Not 100% necessary, but probably again. So I've, just for reference, I'll put this here, and of course I want to rotate it 90 degrees, I think, on the x-axis. Oh no, not the x-axis, sorry, the y-axis, I guess. Yep, there we go. And then we'll create our other wall on this side. And because we're creating a square room, that essentially makes all this a lot easier. Bada bing, bada bosh. And then all I have to do is, again, of course, duplicate that shape and bring it over to the other side. And then we have our room, the basic setup of our room. There we go. So now we've got a, well, it's actually a square room because it's 15 by 15 instead of a rectangle, but we've got a room set up, which is good. That's what we want. So I'll rename this wall 4. I think if we launch this, it's just going to be a static camera at the minute, but we should see just our scene. Static camera. This camera's not anything on it, set on it, so we just see a empty room. Okay, so next thing we might want to do is add some textures. So I'll show you how to do that. We want to add texture for the white walls, maybe a texture for the floor, give it a bit more life basically. So we've got our assets organised below here, where I can just here. That's where we're going to organise all our textures, materials and other things. So let's create a new folder first, call it textures. We want to be organised. It pays to be organised with these sort of things because otherwise you can get a bit lost sometimes. And we want to upload our material. So these are some textures I had from before. I'm going to import the this concrete image in, so this imports in the image to our views. Just import it now. Let's see if this loading indicator, I can't see actually because I'm hiding it, but there's a loading indicator below. And finally, to prep it for being applied to the geometry, we go material, call it concrete wall or something, wall. Let me go to diffuse, we click on this, and bada bing bada bosh. And there's loads of other settings you can do here, like maybe we want to tile it a bit more. Probably I will tile it a bit more because they're quite long walls, probably by 5, maybe not that, but we'll see how it looks. Then finally, next, click on the wall you want to, the material, the object you want to add the texture on. Click on that little pen where it's got material and then concrete wall. That has now added the texture. So now I can see how it will look. Now I think it's a bit stretched at the minute, so I probably want to edit that a bit. The tiling probably, so horizontal tiling, make it 15, see if that affects it. Maybe make this 1 instead of 5. Yeah, so that looks a bit better. So we've got, it's a seamless texture I've got here. You can see it looks a bit better. It's not stretched as it was before. So we did that by editing the tiling. So I'm going to really keep it simple. I'm just going to add a concrete. That's a bit stretched still, so probably I want to add some different. Probably a copy of this for the floor because it's just, I want to tile it differently. Again, we don't want it to look stretched. It doesn't look great if it's like that. So we want to do 15 by 15. I think. Let me go concrete floor, and there we go. You can see now that looks much better. Not stretched because before it was like that. And basically, it was just stretching it. So we've got different objects are going to require different settings for the textures. Okay, so we've got our walls set up now. Should looks quite like a grungy gallery, but that's not too big a deal. And I guess the next thing we want to do is create the basic shape for an artwork. Now this will vary a lot depending on sizes of artworks, you can, which is fine. You can create different ones. So let's create a new entity. I'm going to create new entity, and I'm going to create artworks. So this will be our holder, as it were, for new artworks. Now, ideally, there's loads of things you can add here, loads of components, loads of new entity types. The entity type we're going to add is a box. It's probably just the easiest one to work with. For most artworks, visual artworks are basically rectangular. So we're going to do that. That creates a new instance of a primitive, entity primitive. And I'm basically just going to drag this over here. So you can see it's from the wireframe that's actually going through the wall, so I want to scale it a bit as well. So we've got our, going to scale it like that, make it on the Z axis, which is the blue, and then I'm going to position it back into the scene. All good. Probably take it back a little bit. Good. And then once we've got this looking right, we'll just simply use that as the base. There is also something you can do now, I think, in Play Canvas. It's quite a new feature called templates, so we'll try and use that as well. So which basically creates a template of an object you want to create. So I think I can do that. It's template, new template, and I'll call it artwork. Artwork template, just to distinguish it. Good. So we've got, and then if I'll create a new folder for that, maybe, or maybe not, it doesn't matter too much. And if I wanted to recreate this, just drag it in here. We've got the same settings, so it's like a prefab almost. Alright, all good, but I'm going to remove that now because I don't need it right now. So we want to get an artwork in here. So obviously we're going to need some artwork, so just go upload. We'll find some, I'll just put some white stuff in here. So I'll get my artworks, paintings, I'll find maybe a digital artwork. I don't know, I'll put in this excess computational. I'll create a new folder for this. Actually it's in textures, so it doesn't really matter. That's actually where I want it. And then I'll go material, and for now, just to keep it simple, I'll call it artwork 1, just as long as it's got a different name. Diffuse again, and then there's many other things you can edit here, such as like how reflective it is and that sort of thing. You can even make it transparent, or different levels of transparency here if you want it, opacity. Yeah, so let's choose this artwork 1. Bada bing, bada bosh, we've got our first artwork in the gallery. Yeah. So that's as simple as that. It's not really that format though, so we want to resize it a little bit. It's not square painting, so just do that. And then with that template we've created, we can add loads of these quite easily, and then just rescale them basically on the fly, as it were. Probably want to put it a little bit lower. Okay. I guess we probably also want, just thinking now, we probably also want a roof, so we can do that as well. I'm pretty sure we can just copy the plane and then just flip it around, I think, because if you'll see if it's, no, it's alright actually. Yeah, we need to flip it around, I think, rotate it around. I think that's what I need to do, I think. Can't tell if that's working or not, let me just see. Otherwise the other way I've done it before is just create a box on top. To wait for that to load. Yeah, well from this side, but maybe not the other, I don't know. I think plane's one-sided. I'll just create a box actually, instead of that. Get rid of that. Delete. add the new box, and then we'll add a light in the gallery as well, or a few lights probably, I guess. That essentially means, so if I just shift this up a bit, and it's 15 by 15 obviously because it's the same size. Oh, not that one, wrong axis, sorry. I want to make that 1 and that 15. I want to make it probably a bit thinner as well. It doesn't have to be thick really, the player's never going to interact with it. Okay. And we probably want to give it the same texture too as the floor. Yeah, there we go. So now it's looking pretty dark, isn't it? We probably want some light in here. So where's the... We'll add some more. We'll add again. We'll add another entity, lights, and I'm going to add some lighting. Probably directional, I think. Let's add it there. Move it up a little bit. Vary the intensity of it. And you can do all sorts of things here. So I can even make it like red if I wanted to. But I don't want to do that really. You can maybe make it. Probably want artworks always require good lighting. So that gives us our spread light. Also, maybe I want to add some more like a spotlight or ambient lighting and stuff. So you can see that creates a light in a sort of cone underneath itself, and we can vary that again. So if I want to, probably want to add this and make it a bit wider, I guess. So this is the outer cone angle, which is this here. I'll make it something like 150. There you can see that's much more widely spread. Maybe even, I want to make it quite a lot actually, because I don't want to have to add tons and tons and tons of light to the scene basically. Okay, and then I'll add something here which approximate like a spotlight probably. And yeah, and then I'll show how to nest that probably as well within the scene. Okay, so we've got our first artwork in, we've got our basic building structure, but as yet we can't really move around. So we'll move on to that quite soon, but first I'm just going to create a new entity of type box, primitive type box, and where I've got this spotlight, probably actually the other way around. So let's see what this is positioned. Yeah, I'm going to grab this, move this, where there's the spotlight, so it's there, just for a bit more of a realistic rendering. I'm going to make this smaller, so click the scale tool, scale it down, make it like a sort of strip light, as you might see in a industrial art gallery space. I want to move this, and that's probably fine for what we're doing here. Okay, and then I want the spotlight should be underneath this somewhere. Yeah, that's getting there. Just need to position it properly. Using the perspective camera probably a bit too much. I might switch to doing that in a second. You can also go left as well, so if you want a left view, a front view, camera view, which is the perspective camera, not the perspective camera, the camera entity which is in the game. Still need to move it a little bit, move it down a bit, and that's probably about right. I could even add a particle effect there or something for approximating a light, but I think that's probably a bit beyond the scope of the tutorial. And then we're just doing the same for the other one, so I just want to duplicate it and shift it basically. So there we go. Get this spotlight. Oh, I've got two there for some reason. Okay. Okay. Ding 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 ding. So what I'm doing is just hovering around a bit, trying to get this positioned a little better. As long as it's an approximation, it's sort of alright at this point. Okay, I might whack up the intensity a bit because it's a bit dull in places still. And the same on this one. And I'll probably add a few more of these. But the good thing now is, of course, is that if I wanted to, say, copy another one of these, I can, of course. And I'll just add this as Lightbox 1. Lightbox 1, I can create a template for it, so I can then reuse it again, which is why I was showing the template, which is actually quite new in Play Canvas. I think it was only introduced recently. Okay, so let's create a template for this. New template. Lightbox is created. Click it into the scene. Add it underneath here. Find it. And we've got our sort of templated prefab, if you will, sort of already ready to go. So I'll just add those into the scene in different places. Bada bing, bada bosh. That's nice and ready. We'd have to do we have to position it a little bit, but apart from that, it's basically just that, which is good. You don't have to redo the same thing 10 times or duplicate the same thing, or duplicate all the settings that way, which is quite nice. Oh, wrong thing. Oh, I nested it within the wrong thing. Okay, nice. That's right, yeah. That's why 2 of them were being picked up. Okay. Can probably position these a little better. I'm not going to worry about it too much yet. I go top, I think. It's harder now because I've added a ceiling actually. Maybe I should have left that perspective. And then okay. I think it's just this one here looks a bit weird. It's out of sync with everything else, so I'll just move it probably. I just want to create like strip lights going across. Oh, not that. But you can see how you can quickly create something with this engine. I mean, doing this and positioning all the stuff and creating all the stuff with Three.js would be pretty difficult to tell you the truth. And I'm sure you could do it, but it would be quite hard. Okay, there we go. I can just duplicate these things. Probably delete this one, actually, it's a bit lost there. I'll just duplicate a bunch of these. This is sort of a boring bit. It's tutorial, sorry, but it should at least show you that that can be quite easy to achieve. Duplicate. Okay. It's Rackavai at the minute, really. And of course, I could go into the entities, and if I want to fine tune it, I can do that. But for now, that will probably do. So, we've got our artwork. We probably want to add more artworks now, I'd imagine. So let's add some more artworks. We're using the template we created before. So we go this. It's obviously blank because it is just blank. And I need to position it wherever we want it to be in the scene. So I think we've got a picture there. We want to obviously create one next to it. I'll just move it using the Z axis and the X, get it about in line, and I'll just add a bunch of artworks now, so I've got everything ready. So this, everything that we haven't used before. Open. This might take a little while to load, but not too long, thankfully. And we just repeat. Artwork 2. Diffuse. Select one of these, Infinitium maybe. Assign the material, artwork 2. There we go. That's that really. And put this under artworks so we don't get confused later. Okay. Just naming convention, stick to that. Artwork 1, artwork 2. Just so if later on I need to be screwing around with any of this stuff, I know what's what. Okay. And next I'll probably just add a bunch of these and just speed it up so you don't have to watch me do this 10 times over. So now, after all that, I've created 9 artworks on this wall, and the beauty, as I was saying before, with grouping things in an entity like this, like all these artworks. Now what if I wanted to create those on this side of the wall? If I was doing them individually, I'd have to individually probably duplicate each one of these and duplicate it over here. Whereas because I've grouped them all under an entity called artworks, I can just do this. In fact, I could even add it as a template, I think. So I can say artworks template, templates wall template. Do that, and bada bing bada bosh. Drag this in here. Basically, yeah, it's just gone over here for some reason. But basically, it's created all of these, a duplicate of all these are a copy. The other way you could do it is just duplicate it, but I'm trying to do it this way. And I'm going to change all the names of these as well, but that means that I don't have to go through the laborious process of, no, it's not that laborious, but go through the doing it by hand. So you just want basically this, and I'm going to edit all the sizes of these and everything else, but to make it look sort of cool. But there you go. We've got that duplicated on that side, and obviously if you wanted to do it on this side and the other side, we just bung this in again and rotate it around. So I think first I'm just going to change the references for these. I like to keep it fairly consistent that way, so it's up to 8, so it'll be 9, just so when I'm working on it later I can have a clue what I'm working on. Might be useful later. You don't necessarily need to do this bit, but just so I know if there's some error or something later, I know exactly which piece is causing it, as it were. 15 and 16. So that's pretty cool. We've got 15 artworks in this gallery now. So I'll just we'll override these. I'll have to create textures to override these. Obviously, you don't want the same artworks on the other side. So I need to upload some more art. To quickly do that, and I'll have to swap the materials out. Not a huge deal, and it is still a time saver to do the templating. So I'll just get a bunch of these. That one's not very good. Image. Open these. Import them all in. These images. And I'll speed this up again so you don't have to watch me doing this manually. Okay, so I've switched all those textures now, created the materials, and switched them all. So we've got artworks on two sides of the wall. That'll probably do for now. I don't want to bore you by going through creating all of them. We'll basically switch them right at the end, I think. So we're on to the next part of the tutorial now, which is, well, that's all well and good, but how do we get a character in there? So we're going to create a first-person character controller, and in this example we're just going to use the controller provided by PlayCanvas in their tutorial. So yeah, I'm not sure it specifically supports mobile, but for this example it should suffice, I think. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So this is the tutorial that they give for first-person movement in PlayCanvas. So this is now where we're getting into scripting, of course, using their using JavaScript PlayCanvas engine. So I'll talk a little bit about the scripting structure and somewhat about what each part is doing. So this first person movement create script is just a reference to the script itself. And now we've got these things called attributes here, which are basically types that we can add to the script. So we've got camera, because there's part in this that adds the camera if no camera is present. Number, type number of attributes. Power, which is involved with the movement speed, and look speed, which is involved with looking around. Yeah. And also we're going to have to add a bunch of, we'll have to go into like adding rigid body components and collision components. But anyway, without having to worry too much about this, I'll just show you how we can implement this into our example. So it's literally just a copy paste job, essentially. Well, not quite that simple, but almost really. So I want to create a new entity called player, I think. Player. I want to put this up here. I want it a bit higher up, but not that. Let's see the other way around. There we go. And now I'm going to add a component. So I'm going to add the component script, and I'm going to create this script. I'm just going to call it the same thing. First person movement. Just for simplicity's sake. Ding. That then creates a new script. And if I pass it, oh, and I've not copied and pasted it in yet. Beg my pardon. So we're just going to get this. We're just going to copy it verbatim. Otherwise, we'll be here till next year. Well, not necessarily next year, but we'll be here for. Unless you want to be here for 2 hours while I do this. This is probably necessary. So a little bit of an introduction. Initialized code is what happens when this code basically called when the entity is created just once, and prototype basically calls it every second. I think it is. This prototype is something that will happen every single second. But just thought I'd mention that. I do not need this bit at the bottom. The rest of it should be fine. You've seen no errors apart from that one we got before, because I'd accidentally copied some of the text from the site. And what's happening here is just to go over it a little bit. We define force, and we have an event here for listening for mouse move events, hiding the cursor, collision events, which we'll get onto quite shortly. Yeah, we need to add the rigid body, which we'll get onto shortly. And then basically listening for keyboard events. So WSAD is the standard keyboard events it's listening to, and it's saying minus from the x-axis when pressing right, Z, and sort of that's continued here. And yeah, so I don't think that'll work yet, because we haven't got the collision in and stuff, but let's just see what happens now. We haven't set up any rigid bodies on any of the objects, so more than likely we'll fall through the floor. I might be able to move though, which is quite nice to look around. Ah, no! What did I miss? So yeah, I'm just adding now collision, and we want to add dynamic rigid body. I'm also importing in ammo, which is a physics library they use in Play Canvas. It's just adding it now, I think. And I'm probably going to have to modify this collision box a bit. Probably move it up a little bit, like that. This often requires a lot of fiddling, but we'll get to that. So let's just try it now, see what happens. Yeah, so we fall through the floor, which is what you'd expect at this point, because the floor has no, as far as the physics is concerned, this floor has no, it's not a solid object. So we'll add the following components: collision and rigid body. Now this is a static rigid rigid body. It's not moving around. We don't want that to happen. Keep these the same, I think. We need to modify the collision bounding box, which is basically when an object collides with this. So it's going to be, I think it's half. So as it's 15, it's half of 15. Bada bing, bada bosh. Oh, not that one. Sorry, that was wrong. My bad, my bad. 0.1 probably. Just want to make sure at this point that we don't fall through the floor. Probably maybe less than that. Now I want to make that 7.5. So just to explain that, the bounding box generally is going to be half of the size of this. And now when I run this, I shouldn't fall through the floor, at least. What? Why? Not exactly sure what happened, because I fell through the floor before. I might have to refresh or repass. Sorry, this bit's always a bit fiddly. Let me just add this as something different, and then I think I bet I know what happened. Play Canvas's script editor is very pedantic. So if you don't, then you select the camera. If you don't press save, it doesn't save. That's literally what I forgot to do. Power 10, look speed, whatever, 5. I'll just test anything for now. I completely forgot that. I always forget that. But basically, it's just being pedantic. Yeah, there we go. So we can look around. The look speed's too fast. I can move around with WSAD. The look speed's way too fast, and I can probably walk through the walls, but we've got the basic starting point there. Yeah, so I can walk through the walls, but I knew that was going to happen, so that's good. I'm back in control. 2, and I probably want to ramp the power down quite a lot. So you can tweak these settings, which is good, and you'll get first person movement. So if look speed's probably still a bit too fast. I think I really need to ramp that down. It's too jerky. Maybe even 0.5 and 2, 1 or something. We can tell that, so Let's explain what's happening here. So that's a bit better. The look speed's a bit more slower, which is good. That's what we want. Movement speed's too little. I think it probably needs to be set over. This needs to be set to 2 or something. Just tweak it quickly. I can't move now. Why? Try to set it back to 4 or 5. I need to pass it again. There we go. So I can move again. Good. We've got movement now, so we've got almost that part done. Basically, now what I need to do is add bounding boxes to the walls and rigid body to the walls. So I need to add a collision component and a rigid body component to these walls so that I can't do this. Boosh. See, I've fallen off the map into infinity, the endless beyond. So let's do that. So again, following the same principles. I should have probably actually done this before I created the template, but I wanted to walk you through it bit by bit. Not a huge deal, but that's that. So again, we're going to add 7.5. We're going to add 7.5, I think. No, not that. Not that. Yeah, I didn't need to do that at all, actually. Not that. Yeah, probably like that. I just need to make it a bit taller. The y-axis probably. Let's try one's probably too big. What is it? 1.62. So something like 0.8, isn't it? 8 something, yeah. So that's an approximation. You can tell that the z-axis is too far out though. 0.125 or something. Yeah, that's better. So basically half of that. And now, if I walk towards this wall, let's see what artwork's on it. This, I should not be able to walk through it. Now this is a lot of trial and error you have to do to get this working like 100% most of the time. But hopefully it will sort of function as we want it. Yeah, so I can't walk through the walls. So that's that. Nicely accomplished. So I can't walk through the walls. I can bash into them a bit, but I'm not going to. But if I go here, bye bye world. So let's just set the other wall. And it's going to be basically the same settings. So we add a component of collision, rigid body. Set this up 7.5. And you can view it. You can view the bounding box there in the color, which is very useful, of course. You would be quite lost about that. 0.8 and 125. Bada bing, bada bosh. That's that. And then we can add it on here as well, because we don't want to be able to walk through any of the walls at all. Rigid body 7.5, I think. What was it again? 0.8, 0.125. And then with that done, we've actually got a basic gallery thing set up, but we'll go on to the next part shortly in the final part of the tutorial, which is basically making it so you can add a on collide with an artwork, get the artist name and work title come up, or just the art title. It doesn't have to be both, but maybe you want to do both. It's probably better that way. So I'll just set up this final collision box. 0.8. I've got it memorized now. 125. Bada bing, bada bosh. Now if I go in here, I shouldn't, he says, be able to walk through any wall. So if I go la ha boof, no, la ha ha boof, no, la ha ha boof, no, la ha ha boof. So there we go. We've got our collision boxes set up, basic collision set up, and I can now no longer walk through walls like some sort of I don't know, interdimensional Jesus. So, I mean, we could leave it at that if you wanted to, but obviously we need to get more artworks up on the wall, add sound and stuff. But let's just now we want to create a script so that basically whenever you go up to one of these artwork pieces, you can get the name of the artwork and the artist come up. Some sort of UI probably. So to do this, we're going to have to create a UI element, and we're also going to have to create a script. Yeah. So let's start by creating our UI element. So we go here, new, user interface. We want to create a 2D screen. New screen for the players, for the where the information is going to be presented to the player. And I want to go and create a text element. And then I can go about positioning that somewhere in the UI. I'll put some test text in there for now. There it is. So I'll just put test dish, and let's press play and just see what happens. Now we should see some text pop up on our screen. Oh no, why didn't it? Give me a second, let me debug it. Oh, because I haven't given it a font. Sorry, my bad. So I need to give it a font. So yeah, I forgot this bit. Sorry, absolutely my bad. So if I go, I'm just going to quickly import a font in. Sorry, I forgot that. It's my bad. So quickly I've got a bunch of ones set up before. So you just need to basically get a font for presenting this text. I just forgot that it doesn't have it inbuilt. So this is a font here. We're going to go bold. Import the font in. It's in type. I can't remember what's the file type. Anyway, TTF. That's it. Now it should show some text because it's got a font family basically. There you go. So you just see test in a minute. Not that exciting. We'll just keep it in the center of the screen because it's only going to be showing that when you actually collide with the object. So we'll delete that for now. It's the reference to the actual text is still there. It's just I've deleted it to make it an empty string, so that you don't see anything when. You could change that to something else if you wish, but I'm going to call this artwork. I think artwork UI. Artwork UI. There we go. Which makes sense. So I've created. So what I've done there is I've created a 2D interface, 2D screen, and an artwork UI element, which is the type of text. So what I want to do now is basically on these, we're going to have to add a collision component again, because this relies upon colliding with this object somehow. This can be a bit fiddly sometimes. So rigid body and collision. This can be very, very annoying to configure sometimes, so expect a little bit of messing about. No, I want to just make it about the same size. I know he's got control of my pointer, I don't care. What's happened to my mouse? So that might be about right. So we've created a sort of collision box around the painting itself. And then we're going to add another component called of type script. And we're going to call it trigger text. And here okay, so now we've got our bounding box set up for the collision, and we've got the rigid body on there. We're going to start editing our script. So let's edit that. Click the edit button. So same structure as before it gets created with, and we're going to want to add an attribute that we can edit because we don't want to hard code it for 20 artworks. We want each to be able to have its own attribute, so we can modify it per instance. Let's call artist name, and then we want to do this. So we want to set the type to string. Type string, and I want to actually encapsulate that in like that. Ding. So that should now, let's just save that as ours. So I'll add another attribute of type string, so basically text. And then we want to do the following. So we're going to add var artist name equals this dot artist name. See, it pops up there. That's a reference to this. Bada bing, bada bosh. Then we want to add the handler for when a collision occurs. This entity. To do this, we do this entity on collision dot on. Then the following collision start this on collision start this. This is setting up for a method we'll create below for function for when a collision starts. So we've got that. I haven't added a semicolon there, that's why it's complaining. And that needs to be a dot instead of a. And we also want a event for when the collision ends. So I'll just copy and paste that and put end. And end. So what we're going to be doing in those these functions we're calling here. Well, basically, we want to add the text when you collide initially, and then we want it to remove the text when you exit the collision event. So we don't actually need the collision update. We just need to create these two functions and then have them do their action. So trigger text dot prototype dot on collision start, which is called here. Okay. Equals function result, open brackets, if result other dot rigid body, and then open brackets for what happens if that condition is true. And then we do this dot app root find by name. There are a few different ways you can do this, but we'll just stick to this for now. I think it was, what did I call it again? The text artwork at UI, okay. And this has to be right, otherwise it won't work, so make sure it is. Encasing and all. So I'll just double check that. Artwork _ UI, not artist work, sorry. Artwork UI element dot text equals this dot artist name, which is the attribute reference we have there. Bada bing, bada bosh. Oh, what have I missed? Missing a semicolon. Ding! So basically we just need to do the opposite here for the on collision ended, basically. So we go on collision end. Make sure to reference it everywhere you need to. And then I don't actually need the result of a rigid body because we're not checking for that, we know it's already happening. So it's just basically that, but returning an empty string. So instead of the attribute, we want to just put empty string to return back an empty string. And we save that, and with any luck I should now get if I pass this, I should see the attribute pop up. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to just call it John Smith whatever. It can be anything really. It's just a, yeah. So let's find that artwork. It's the one that says destroy and all that stuff on it. From Cherry artwork. From a Cherry Soul, John Smith. So now, when I approach the artwork, if my boxes are set up correctly and everything else, when I collide with this, I should see a text element pop up. Yeah, there we go. Bada bing, bada bosh. John Smith. When I go away, goes away. When I collide, it says John Smith. When I go away, it goes away. So yeah, and obviously, if you wanted to repeat that, what you do is take that same script and attach it to all these other artworks individually, and then give them each individual names in the attribute. In there for the attribute. So for example, maybe, I don't know, Mary Smith created this. You just give it an attribute of Mary Smith, attach the same script and do that. That's actually floating a bit off the wall, I need to fix that, but that's really a positioning thing. So actually that sort of gives you everything that you need to finish this project. Obviously I could go through adding every single individual attribute and script to each one of these, but there's no point really because you get the principle hopefully. So that's how you create a 3D gallery using Play Canvas with some functionality. Obviously to finish this off I'd add artworks on this side and artworks on the other side using the template schema like we did before. But again, you'd just be watching me repeating stuff that we've already done, so hopefully that helps. I might do more Play Canvas tutorials in the future. Let me know if you've enjoyed this. Like and subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I hope it's been useful. It's quite a lot to try and condense into however many minutes it's been, but hopefully I did a decent enough job. So yeah, that's how you create a virtual WebGL gallery using Play Canvas. Obviously one way you could expand on this is to add proper mobile support It is possible, I've done it before, it's just a bit fiddly and probably beyond the scope of this tutorial. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I've been Noah Nerds. Like, subscribe, in a bit.